Hey everyone, Josh Powers here from Polygonflow, and today I'm thrilled to announce Dash, a novel approach to world building in the Unreal Engine. With this video, I hope to show you just how exceptional Dash is at streamlining your creative process with no loss of creative control. So sit tight and let's get into it. Okay, with the Unreal Editor open, the Dash icon should be right up here, and then if you click on it, a prompt bar will show up. Our goal for Dash is to remove literally any complex interaction you have to do with your 3D software. And as such, you'll see me throughout the tutorial working exclusively in full screen mode, with nothing but the Unreal Engine 5 viewport, supercharged with Dash's incredible versatility. So let's hit F11 and go into full screen, and then jump right into it. You can think of this prompt bar as a comprehensive set of solutions for world building. Typing keywords in here will show all relevant tools and actions, and the same drop-down menu here can also be opened by double-clicking on the logo itself. The menu on the left is where you can check for updates, open up the documentation, and much more. There's lots of other things we could cover here, but let's get practical and create some art. First, let's create some terrain. You can type create a terrain or just terrain into the prompt bar. You'll notice the terrain action being the first suggestion. An action will typically have its title in bold and is context sensitive, meaning it'll operate based on your prompt and sometimes your scene content. Tools, however, don't have their text in bold and will just open up a small panel through which the tools work. You can press the up and down arrows to cycle between suggestions, select them with your mouse, or just hit enter, which will bring up the first tool being suggested. As you can see, Dash created a terrain mesh for us and also opened a floating panel through which we can now adjust. If I close the panel, then select the terrain again, Dash will automatically show this icon, which suggests that whatever actor I've selected in the Unreal Editor has an editable tool attached to it. This is available for a couple of other behaviors as well, and we'll be going through those later in this tutorial. Let's go ahead and click on the icon and adjust our terrain settings. Next, we want to give the terrain a material, and this is where the content library comes into play. Let's click on this bridge icon right here, and the content library will show up. Currently, it contains all megascans assets you've downloaded through the Quixel Bridge plugin, and soon we'll expand this to show your content browser assets as well. Let's type in the search bar ground surface. This one looks good, so I'll drag and drop it onto my terrain mesh, and that'll do it. In the event that the asset wasn't loaded into your project already, Unreal will first import it, which can take a couple of seconds. We've also built custom shaders for megascans, and as a result, selecting the terrain will show a material icon right here. If we click on it, we can adjust common properties such as tiling, brightness, normal strength, and so on. Before we move on to placing assets, I also wanted to add some water here. To do this, let's write create a plane in the Dash prompt bar, pick the primitive action, and a plane should be created in the center of our view. Next, let's write apply water, and a water material will be applied to it. I'll go ahead and scale my plane to properly cover the terrain, and now we're ready to move on. With our terrain set up, let's start placing some objects in the scene. You can drag and drop them from the content library, and an interactive object placement allows you to neatly drag the object around, all while aligning it to the underlying surface. You can hold Ctrl to scale it, Shift to rotate it, and even Ctrl-Shift to sink it below the surface, which is extremely common to do when world building. The panel over here shows you all the hotkeys you can use with this context-based placement tool, and you can quit the context at any point by hitting Escape. And to collapse the hotkey panel, just double-click on it. Just to recap, we've been able to create a ground, adjust its settings, give it a material, add some water, and now place an object, all without ever interacting with Unreal's cluttered workflow. And we haven't even scratched the surface of what Dash can do and the things that we've planned for it. Before we start detailing our scene, let's go ahead and type new camera to create a new camera. Then I'll pick a view I feel comfortable with, and do some very brief tweaks to my field of view, sharpen, and other basic effects to get a good base. I'll also pick my lighting setup either by typing cycle lighting to see all the possible lighting setups, or just write a specific word to pick a preferred one. With that out of the way, let's start adding more detail. Scattering is one of Dash's main strengths, and its simplicity is truly unparalleled. Just drag an asset from the content library to your viewport and hold Control when you drop it. This will give you a couple of scatter options. Let's just go with scatter here. Like with the terrain, a floating panel shows up, and with it, everything we need to get a good base. As you can see, I'm getting really good results within seconds. I recommend you play with all the values, but fall off and break up are among my favorites, as they allow you to get some truly phenomenal results in no time. As a small tip, the sliders usually make fairly minute changes. However, by holding Control, you can increase the rate of change, and with Shift, it'll give you even higher value increments. The floating bar only offers base parameters, but we'll look into even more advanced settings later on. Our terrain is now neatly detailed, but let's take things even further. We'll write draw curve in Dash, and literally just draw a curve in our viewport. Then with our grass and the curve selected, an icon will show up in the toolbar, allowing us to mask out the grass with the curve. As with most things, a short, concise panel shows up with just the right settings you need. You can use this masking workflow with any type of object. Just make sure you first select the asset you want to mask, which in our case is the grass, then select whatever you want to mask it with. It could be curves, meshes, or even another set of instance objects, such as large rocks scattered throughout the landscape. And by the way, scattering also works on curves and instances. I can select some instances here, then drag and drop some objects from the content library with Control pressed, and also scatter on instances. But keep in mind that scattering on instances can be quite resource intensive. Needless to say, we've worked to give you state-of-the-art capabilities with zero friction in the process. This simplified approach doesn't remove any complexity from your workflow. As a small side note, you can at any point close the panel of a specific scatter setup, then delete the instances themselves in the viewport. Instances themselves can be selected, and from there you can open up the material floating bar to start tweaking their look. Alright, to add some more variation, let's shift-click a bunch of plants, weeds, and flowers in the content library, then scatter them out on our terrain. And we'll also add a few bigger rocks to really break things up. Alright, I'm pretty happy with the scene we've built so far, so now we can do some quick post-processing work. Dash has a plethora of color grading presets to offer, and as with the lighting, we can just type cycle grading to cycle through the different options, or even go with specific keywords of famous movies such as The Joker and Children of Men, or more relevant keywords like warm or vintage. Back to my camera settings, I'll just tweak a few things a bit, and that should do it. This workflow for me is what makes Dash truly exceptional. We haven't even touched Unreal Engine's panels or nodes, and everything happened through a prompt bar, without ever taking over creative control. These types of natural scenes are the first set of environments that Dash truly excels at, but even with this first release, we're already expanding to more man-made environments. Here we have a new scene I built using the various tools in Dash, but to really make it shine, I can just search for some decals in the content library, drag and drop them onto the viewport, and then the interactive decal placer will give us the best decal workflow out there. And even more, you can select multiple decals and scatter them as you would scatter regular meshes. This makes detailing man-made environments such a fun and inspiring process. Alright, and here I am in another scene, and I wanted to scatter the megascans trees, which are not available in Bridge. To do this, I'll drag and drop them somewhere in the scene, find and open the tool Surface Scatter, add the trees to scatter, then a surface to scatter to. Just like with drag and drop scatter, if we select the trees we just manually scattered, we can select the 3-dot icon up here and now have the floating bar to adjust our trees. This method of scattering is now identical to the other, which means we can also mask them out based on curves or other objects. We'll be supporting such assets directly in the content library soon, making the process just as simple as the content library's scatter workflow. And before we close our scatter adventures, I'll show you one more thing. Megascans comes with thousands of atlas textures through their website, but they're unfortunately not available in the Bridge plugin. To remedy this, we can download them locally through the Megascans website or Bridge software, and then back in Dash, you can write Create Scatter Mesh Cards or just Scatter Cards, then select the action Mesh Cards, and it'll open a dialog for you to select the opacity map of your Atlas asset. And just from that, Dash will import all your textures, create mesh cards and materials with them, then scatter them on whatever object you had selected in your viewport. Again, there's zero loss of control. All our scatter parameters are right there to tweak, and with this, you now suddenly have thousands of assets that can be used to detail environments at record speed. And that concludes our first introduction video. We'll be diligently working to give you all the learning material you need to get acquainted with Dash, and I hope to show you many more environment case studies where we'll just be creating beautiful worlds at our own pace. In this age of one-click solutions with AI systems, and bloated workflows on the other end of the spectrum, we want to give you an alternative future where you can create art that you feel proud of. Be sure to check our Discord where myself and the team will be there to assist you with anything you need. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.